Hi everybody, I'm going to give a quick demonstration on how to complete this shading sheet for Miss Myers. I'm going to start with smooth. I'm also going to do some of the other ones. I have already pre-prepared some of the things because I'm going to do each one on a different sheet so I can show you a couple different things. The first thing is obviously put your name on it. I recommend getting 6 Post-it notes. These are super sticky kind, which allows me to reposition them. I am going to position them so that I can do this smooth section. And I'm going to start by just covering right to the edge with my edge of my Post-it note. I want the lightest part to be on this far left side for everybody and the darkest to be on the far right side for everybody, okay? Make sure that you do them in the correct order. Okay, so I'm going to line up my Post-it note right with the extra line on the edge, so that I can make sure that I keep my paper clean. All right. Keeping your paper clean when you make art is important, especially when you start to sell art. Dirty paper completely detracts from your art. It could be great, and then you have dirty paper, and nobody wants it, okay? So try and keep your art as clean as possible. Using these for my little shading sheet allows me to keep my paper really, really clean. And so I'm going to put 2 at the top and 2 below to mark off the edges, 1 at the end to keep it clean there. And I'm going to have one that I start with here. This is the sticky side, and I'm going to move it as I go. Okay? So for the smooth section, I'm going to use pencil. This is the only section I'm going to use pencil on. Everything else is going to be in pen. Okay? I like to hold my pencil like this with my finger on top of it. This is what it looks like from the underside. All right? This is going to be on the paper. And then I can use this finger to apply pressure and keep the largest part of my pencil lead on the paper rather than holding it like this where I get a smaller point. If I hold it like this, I can get all that lead on the paper. I don't like that pencil. I'm going to get a different pencil. So you just start with a number 2 pencil. I'm holding it like this again. I have a nice sharp point on my pencil so that I can get as much of my pencil lead on there as possible. And I'm going to go all the way down my whole gradient scale here. This is what we're creating. It's called a gradient when you work from light to dark or dark to light, or you create things that go in between those two. This is shading or creating value. I'm going to go all the way to the edges, make sure I fill it in. I might even I would turn my paper if I were you, because that's not going very well. So I'm going to turn my paper and get that spot. Now there are a couple little tools that I can use to help myself get a smoother look. They were not on my desk, so I have gone to go get them. One is a blending stick like this. If it is dirty, this one's fairly dirty, I can use a sandpaper board, which what this is, to clean it by rubbing it back and forth, and I'm going to do that now. This allows me to basically file down to clean paper, and that's not horrible. I'm going to get that dust off, and then I can use this to make this look even smoother all the way across. Okay, if you use your finger, then the oils from your fingers end up on the paper, you know, the things that allow us to have fingerprints and leave them places. And a lot of times you'll try to erase, but you won't be able to erase it all because the oil has bound the graphite from your pencil to the paper. I don't like this. It's a little dark for me. I can either use an eraser like this and tap it in that area to pick some up, or I can get this fancy kind of eraser. All of ours are in a little container like this, It looks sort of like old chewing gum. This is called a kneaded eraser, and I'm going to knead it to get it cleaner, right? And then all I have to do is tap it where I want to get some of that stuff off. And I'm actually going to tap out most of that square because I think I went too dark. Okay? So this is called a kneaded eraser. This is your traditional little white plastic eraser. We can also clean this off. If it's dirty, you can clean it off on dark jeans. I have a little piece of carpet that I like to clean it off on, and that'll get it cleaner. It's important to try and clean your erasers before you put them away because we all share, right? We all share. So now that I've done all of my 5 squares, I'm going to move this one down to here. And I'm going to go back over everything to make it darker. All right, and I'm still using my number 2 pencil. I'm going to go evenly over all of my squares all the way to the end. Because I have my blue Post-its here, I don't have to worry about going off the edge of the paper. Now I can take my blending tool again, and I can blend that out so it's really smooth again. Again, we're using this tool instead of our fingers. Okay. Go back and forth. Now when I peel this one off, this should be different than the one previous. Oh, yeah, it looks different, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to put it back down at the next one. I could continue using my number 2 pencil if I am getting good results. I am going to switch to a 4B so I don't have to press so hard. If you try to press really hard to get it darker, you're going to end up with buckled paper and it ends up really shiny and doesn't look as dark. All right, so this is a 4B pencil. If you can see that, maybe it'll focus. All right, B stands for soft. 4 is the number. The higher the number, the softer it is. This pencil was an F, which is like a super fine, hard pencil. Usually it'll say something like this one is the number 2 pencil. It says 2HB right there. H stands for hard. The higher the number, the harder and lighter it is. So usually we don't need to go a lot lighter than a number 2 pencil. So 4B would be a nice step up from that and be considerably darker without having to apply a lot of pressure. I'm applying the same amount of pressure I did for my last pencil, but getting lots darker results. And I'm going to take that all the way to the end again. In order to get a really good value scale where everything moves evenly, I think it's really good to start at one end and work our way to the other, okay? Now, when we're doing this on our own drawings, you may like to do that. You may not be able to do that as well either, right? So doing it all the way across is not always an option. Again, I'm going to take my little blending tool. I'm going to use this dirtier side now since I've started to get a lot more value there and go over these guys and get right to the edge. And now I have a pretty good value going on here. I think that one might be dark at the edge. You can always go back and adjust. All right, I'm going to go back over with my 4B one more time. I'm going to press a little harder this time. Making sure I go all the way to the edges. All right, I'm going to blend a little bit. I'm only going to blend this first one because I'm going to go ahead and move this, and I'll blend this last one all at the same time. All right, so see, now I have 4 different values. I'm going to work on this last one, and I'm going to go up to a 6B. That's a lot softer. If you need something that's really, really, really dark for a drawing, I have a 9B. These guys are really soft, kind of expensive, and their leads break really easy. So these are sort of held for special needs, okay? So here's my 6B. It works just like the 4B in that it's darker. It's a little bit softer than the 4B. It's going to allow me to get a lot of graphite down in there. I'm going to go kind of both directions, which I haven't done before. And I'm going to make sure that I get my edges. And now I'm going to use this blending tool and blend that out. I'm not applying a whole bunch of pressure, right? I'm just using this rolled up piece of paper, which is basically what this is, to move that graphite around. And now when I remove that, you can see that I have a nice different levels of values here. All right, 5 different levels. I think that this over here is a little dark on that edge, so I'm going to try and lighten that up and make it look a little bit more even. Okay. Now for the hatching, we would move our Post-it notes down for that. I am going to show you guys cross hatching. And on this one, I'm not using Post-it notes. This is the exact same sheet. It just doesn't have my smooth shading here on it, which I can show you what it looks like without Post-its. See how tidy that is? It stays in its lines. I don't have to worry about going out of its lines, okay? Because these are super sticky, I can use these all the way down my sheet. I do want to show you a different way to do that if you don't have access to Post-it notes. Then you can do that with tape like this. So masking tape, this, you know, the little brown creamy color tape. I'm going to take this and I'm going to either stick it to your arm or your forehead or your shirt or whatever. All right. And so that you can see how I do this, I'm going to put this one here. Once I've stuck it to myself, I'm going to lay it down and line up my line right here. There. Okay. This is masking tape. It's just specifically designed just for this. Masking off areas that you don't want to have something adhere to. Painters use it for paint. People who draw use it for graphite and whatever we're drawing with. Artists use it for lots of different things. Okay? All right, so I'm going to do the top and bottom. And then I'm going to get 2 pieces for my sides. I'm sticking a mine to my arm. And I do that just so that they're not super, super sticky. That way my paper is real thin, so I don't want to tear it. So I'm going to put these all the way around the border for this hatching one. Okay. And for this one, we're going to use pen. The pens that we have are these Arteza rollerball pens. This is a .07 fine. I also like one called the R2 Roller that you can get at the Dollar Tree. They come in packs of 2 for $1. It might be $1.25 now, but basically about 50 cents to 70 cents for a pen, which is really inexpensive. All right. For hatching, what we're going to do is use lines. And the closer our lines get, the darker our shading is going to be. So I'm going to start really wide. I kind of like to go diagonal just because that's how my hand moves. So I'm going to start fairly wide. I'm going to go all the way to the end just like I did with my smooth one. I'm trying to keep my lines nice and even and consistent and evenly spaced. Okay? Now, I haven't tried this before, so let's see how this works, right? I like to try new things on camera all the time. So I'm going to peel that off. I'm going to carefully move it forward. And I'm actually going to press it down with the end of my pen because I don't want to smear that ink, okay? So now I'm going to go again, and I'm going to do the lines spaced the same amount, just moved over a little so that they go in between the lines that I already have. You don't have to be super, super exact with this, right? Watch how far your pen goes so you don't go off your tape or your Post-it notes. All right, and every time I do a section, I'm just going to move my tape. You might prefer this to Post-it notes. Everybody's different, right? Not sure, my pen might be running out of ink. It's sort of giving me like dotted lines here, but it'll work. Okay, and then I'm going to move again. If I decide that this is not that much lighter than this, I might want to go back and go over everything, right? But you can also wait till the end to do that. So don't freak out yet. I think that I'm going to make these a little darker because I'm not sure I like the others. If you create a mistake on this worksheet, there is nothing wrong with you getting a new blank one and cutting out the part you need after you've done it and pasting it in, okay? Please don't feel like that is a problem. Mistakes happen. We have to figure out how to be creative to fix them. All right, so on this very, very last one, I'm going to try and get it really, really dark. I encourage you to try and get it really, really dark, almost black, because if you ever do a drawing with hatching, you will need that. Don't press too hard because you're going to start buckling your paper. All right. And now I can decide if I like all that. I think it looks okay. I think these two could probably use some more. So I'm actually going to come back over here. I'm being real careful with my tape because my tape is not as absorbent as my paper, and there is wet ink on there that I'm trying not to get on my fingers, okay? So I'm just going to add some few more lines to here, as well as this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this before I do more, because I've already seen a mistake that I don't like. All right, the idea is to try and get these to jump evenly from light to dark. You know, like this is 10%, that's 20, 30, 40, 50, but you know, something close to that where it's going evenly from light to dark. That one kind of looks the same. Which now that one, making this one different than that one makes this one the same, so I've got to go back. All right, so sometimes you can make it work by making one of your dark ones darker, or preferably making one lighter, but when you repin, it makes it really hard to make it lighter. So now I'm going to go back and forth on this one because I have it taped off and I can, so that I have more dark lines than I have white space. Okay? So this is the hatching one. I'm going to not reuse this tape because of the ink on it that is not dry. And I'm just going to carefully peel it off. And if I have to turn a corner, I'll turn a corner. I'm trying really hard not to touch the inked up stuff. If I do, it's okay. Just I'll go wash my hands and dry them off before I move on. That way you can keep your paper real neat. And if you pull your tape and it starts to have a problem, if you pull it real tight to the paper like this, where it's almost flat against the paper, it's a lot easier. Okay? Now, if I was going to do the cross hatching, it's exactly the same as this, only instead of my lines going one way, they're going to go two directions. So I'm actually going to skip that one and talk about stippling down here. I'm going to go back to my Post-it notes because I'm not sure I like the tape, and I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake, and I want it to look nice for y'all. So on this stippling, I'm going to go back to my Post-it notes, and we're going to line them up. And I'm moving kind of quick because I don't want y'all to be waiting on me. Of course, you could always speed me up, y'all. So if you go to the bottom right-hand side of the video where there's the little gear, you can change the speed so you can listen to me become a chipmunk by speeding me up to 1.5 or 2%. Okay? Stippling is all little tiny dots. Okay? When you are stippling with a pen, do not go full on to your paper like this, because eventually the end here will break and you will end up with a big blob of ink everywhere. Okay? If I see you doing that with your pen, I'm going to take the pen away from you. Okay? Because it means you're not listening. All right? So I'm going to show you how to properly stipple. I'm going to put my hand right down on the paper like this, and it is not going to come off the paper. Ever. Until I need to move over, and then it goes back on the paper. Okay? I am gently going to touch the tip of this pen to the paper, and ink will fall right out into the right place. And I will have a perfectly round little dot. If you are doing it this way, your dots will not be round, and I will know, even if I don't see you doing it, I will be able to tell that this is how you did it. Okay? So, small dots, I'm just touching the paper. There is zero reason for me to be making a bunch of sound with my pen by touching the paper. Okay? You should not be able to hear that at all. I'm going to do that all the way to the end, just like we did with all the others. All right? Try not to make it even. Try not to make it look like it's in a grid. It's not always that easy with these really spaced out ones. You could do this and go back. All right, uh-oh, I went off the paper a little bit. I was being too fast, getting too excited. I'm not going to go all the way on this because you'll be here forever. So now I'm going to move my Post-it note just like we talked about right over here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to add more, making sure that I get all the way to the edge. Don't leave your edges empty. They're lonely. They need dots too. Okay? So I'm going to work it all the way to the edge. You can go a little faster, but the faster you go, the more likely you're going to get little lines and not dots. Okay? This is one of those slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, where the tortoise beats the hare. Or the tortoise crosses the finish line and their stuff is just better already. I'm already moving my little Post-it because I'm just going to work my way down. Make sure you get all the way to the edges and the corners and all the things, okay? So these two are the same. I'm going to go darker on these three. If you're not careful, little patterns will pop up and you'll start to see that your hand likes to move in a certain way and isn't being very random, okay? Random is kind of key. Let's see, is that different enough? I think that's different enough. Now we're going to add all the way to these. And now that I'm getting more and more dots, I can start being less random. Go ahead and go closer. Get them nice and tight, right to the edges. Always get right to the edges. Okay, and so on. This last one, if I were to just do part of it, I'm going to show you what it should look like. Okay? It should really be dark, just as dark as all the others. Just because you're doing it with tiny dots doesn't mean that it shouldn't get just as dark as the others. We're looking for a range from very dark to very light and all the different levels in between. And I think that this is already not dark enough. I need to keep going. All right, that is still not dark enough, okay? I'm not going to stipple for you the whole thing because it's just going to be forever. Now the last one that you would do is this scumbling one down here. This one is basically whatever you want to do here. You can do lines, you can do dots, but you really can't because you already did these, right? Scumbling is more like I'm going to write a bunch of words, or I'm just going to create a bunch of loop-de-loops or zigzags or whatever to create my shading, okay? Just like the others, it needs to go right to the edge of your box, and it should be evenly applied. just like we talked about with the others, okay? The reason you want even application is because you're trying to show off that you know how to shade and that you can give me a range of shading and it's not all the same, okay? If you want really dynamic drawings, you definitely want to have lots of ranges of shading. Otherwise, your drawing looks really flat and it's hard to see a whole lot of volume in there, all right? So scumbling, wiggly lines, I like to do loop-de-loos, and this is what mine would look like when I create it. All right, I've got my Post-its down. I'm going to just start loop-de-looing all over. And this is why I like the Post-it notes, because I can go big, and I don't have to worry about where my tape ends. Okay, now I'm going to move it, and I'm going to start at the next one. And I'm going to loop-de-loo all the way to the end. I like to go back and forth in different directions and make sure that it looks darker. It does. So now I'm going to move it to the next line. My lines start to sort of disappear here. Alright, so I'm going to start making smaller circles. Make sure you really cover everything. I'm going to keep moving my thing. Where is my line? Here's my line. Alright, and I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to do my last one. Now I could stop it there, but I think that I would go back. And I think that this one could really use more. So I'm going to do more all the way across. It also gives me the opportunity to create bigger loop-de-loos. And get a really much darker area over here. Right, and this last one. I'm really looking for dark, 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 like level 9, 10 of dark here, okay? All right, so we have smooth here, hatching. Cross-hatching is the same as hatching, just going 2 different directions. We have stippling, which is dots, where my hand is right on the paper. Scumbling's lots of different shapes, loops, zigzags, whatever. I can still use my Post-it notes for these shapes over here that are flat right now, but when I shade them, they'll become a form. So I can turn them into forms, which is a 3D item. Okay, it has volume, and I can line up my things like this. What I want to start with for this though is which direction is my sun coming from. So I'm going to create my sun. This is my sun. You can put your sun wherever you want, right? It could be up here, it could be over here. The only thing is that if you move your sun, you're gonna move all the shadows and stuff. So my sun is coming from here. That means this is going to be my lightest. This will be my next light. This will be my lightest, my next darkest, and my darkest. And then there will be a shadow over here. Okay, so I like to start by doing my sides first. All right, so we said this is the lightest. This is going to be medium, and this is going to be dark. I could also number it 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put my Post-it notes right to the edge. You're going to have a hard time with that, so you just have to be careful with this one. I'm still using those same 6 Post-it notes, y'all. Okay, same 6 Post-it notes. I'm going to do, and see, I did that in pencil, which means that I can erase it if I want. I'm going to do my round ball in smooth, and I'm going to do all of these other guys in these ones with pen. So let's see. I'm going to do these as hatching, so I'm going to hatch the whole thing. I'm there and there. Okay, now I've already got my light done, so I'm going to pull actually these two up. And now I'm going to block off the light section right there that I don't need it to be any darker. Okay, you could also do each side individually. You can try and do it this way. Now I'm going to go back over. Not sure if that's going to be dark enough for me. I think I'm going to do a little bit more because I want my medium to be darker. All right, and now I'm going to cover up my medium. And it's a lot easier to just go ahead and cover all of that and not worry about where the rest of everything else is. So now I'm going to do the darkest side. I think my Post-it note is starting to not stick. Yeah, so I've gone over a little bit. The world is not going to end. If I wanted to, I could actually pretend like my cube's not completely square. It's sort of blended out. Now we would talk about where the shadow is going to land, right? There's going to be a little bit of shadow here. And a little bit of shadows probably come from here. And it's going to go till, let's say here, right? I can try and block the rest of this off if I want. It's not super easy. And this little area where it comes off of that part right there is going to be just as dark as that side. You can turn your lines so that they give a new direction too, which creates this different texture, which is really nice. I'm going to make that edge real dark right there. And then I'm going to give more of the medium over here and over here. And see what it looks like. It's not bad. It probably doesn't really look like that. That's my best guess. All right. We could totally take boxes and shine lights on them and see what happens. If you want to do that, feel free. Okay. So I'm going to do a different type of shading for each one of these, right? So I've already done hatching. I can't do hatching on any of these. Maybe I do cross hatching or stippling or scumbling. All right, I think that I'll probably do stippling for this one, even though I said I'd do smooth. So make sure that you have all of these complete and all of these complete. You have the entire week to work on it. That doesn't mean you goof off. If you complete this and it looks just as good as mine, then you will have an alternate activity to work on. Okay?